Hello and welcome to Locals Supporting Locals, the Heartbeat of the Okanagan radio show. I'm your host, Kevin Proteau, and sadly, Paula will not be with us this evening. We have a very important topic this evening that we're going to be discussing, sustainable development, aka Agenda 21 and regionalism. For those who have been concerned, whether it be about genetically modified organisms, Monsanto, smart meters, sustainability, carbon tax, carbon credits, the Bill 24, which is the fight over the farmlands across not only BC but Canada, Bill C-18, which is a fight to stop us from saving our seeds. This is the show to listen to because this is where we tie it all together. Just before we start the show, though, we just want to give just a couple of updates here and notices here. Like Locals Supporting Locals has now started up their third annual calendar here in our Okanagan, and so we are looking for sponsors to participate in our calendar. The one thing that is absolutely mandatory is that you must be locally owned, and it's or I should say that not be part of the big corporations here. And so if you want to participate in our third annual calendar here, you can look us up at www.localsupportinglocals.ca. As well, you can check our archives for all our radio shows at localsradio.com. We're still, we got about 6 shows. This is our 6th show under our belt here. And Locals Supporting Locals is just about people trying to make a difference here, like myself here. And we're concerned citizens. So we like to bring on people that are accredited to speak on issues that affect us not only politically or across Canada, but more importantly, what we like to discuss is solutions as well, as much as we can. Some of the issues are quite big, but we try as much as we can. And the only way we can take back or start to take back a lot of what's taking place here is to keep it local. So support your local businesses, your locally owned businesses, wherever you may be, as well as your local ethical, organic, and natural farmers, wherever you may be. So tonight I'm very pleased to have Dee Nicohlson with us tonight. And Dee Nicohlson has actually been a personal friend now since the beginning of Locals Supporting Locals, and she's been one of the first people that I connected with and helped me down the path of educating me on what's taking place in our world today. She's got one hell of a background, but we'll keep it short because we can probably spend an hour just introducing what Dee has actually done here. But again, Dee Nicohlson has gained an international reputation as a commentator on the politics of health freedom with her articles and blog posts as an editor at the Canadians for Health Freedom blog site, and most recently as the executive director for the National Health Federation of Canada. Her insights on health worldwide is being negatively affected by trade agreements obligations and how this is translating into access denied to natural health products by the thousands. So I welcome to the show Dee Nicohlson. How are you, Dee?
I'm fine, Kevin, and thanks for the lovely intro. I had no idea. Anyways, start out smiling because the rest of it isn't going to make you smile.
I know this. People have no idea how important this subject is and how it's going to tie into a lot of the issues. Like a lot of people think that smart meters is one issue, GMOs are another issue. The farmland, the Bill C-24 that they're trying to take away the farmlands, and it's the Bill C-18 with the seed regulations where you won't be allowed to save seeds, and our good old Canadian Food Inspection Agency will do that for you. They have no idea how all of this, and there's many more that get involved in here, but how it all ties in together under this UN Agenda 21, AK or Sustainable Development, aka Agenda 21. So, if you can tell us a little bit about the origin of Agenda 21.
Well, this
I
goes
know it's a
back.
loaded question.
Yeah, well, as far as I can tell, Kevin, you know that I've been digging into this stuff for more than a decade, and I think I was one of a couple of people around the world who spotted that the fact that the international trade agreements and alliances that we're creating right now are actually a function, a method, and the method that they are using is employed for a purpose, and that purpose is enclosed almost entirely in the document known as an Agenda for the 21st Century from the United Nations, otherwise known as Agenda 21. Now, I said it started as a concept. Well, you can go all the way back to the foundation of the Illuminati, if you want to refer to such people. I mean, you give them a label and they sound like a cult, but on the other hand, who were they? Well, they were greedy bankers, is who they were. And so if the word makes you uncomfortable, so what? Go to the fact these guys are the same kind of greedy bankers we've got blackmailing the Ukraine right now to the tune of $18 billion, which is another show entirely, isn't it?
Yes.
But at any rate, what you've got is a concept for global control of all of the trading and shipping and commercial enterprises in the world, because the more one could control, all these people saw, the richer one was and the more power one had. Now, it's always natural for the rich to gather with the rich, and it's always natural for the poor to gather with the poor, but it's totally unnatural for either side to ever make the real acquaintance of the other. And unfortunately, what we've been doing is we have been allowing the rich to govern us. Now, what they've done is over the course, particularly over the last century or so, they have done a huge number of consolidations. Now, bear in mind that they want control of everything. This is, under another label, the one world government that people have been yammering on about for 20 or 25 years now.
Well, yeah. Well, you heard it. I mean, George Bush Sr. has clearly stated it.
In 1991, yeah.
Yeah,
A New
yeah.
World Order, 1991. So we've been expecting this, and we've been warned about it. But then on the other hand, people say to themselves, well, how the heck are they going to pull that off? Well, they already have a way, and this is the way. Now, once you understand how they do it, you know what to oppose and why. Until you understand how they do it, you'll chase issue after issue, and they will divide you and conquer you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is whether your concern is genetically modified organisms and the takeover of the world food supply, or whether it's about Common Core education, which is a collectivization and a dumbing down of all of our children in perpetuity, and a streaming of them into corporate usefulness like slaves, okay? Or if your concern is pharmaceutical healthcare versus natural healthcare, or if your concern it has something to do with your ability to have a business in a so-called free democracy, okay, it doesn't matter, because every single one of those items and all of the rest you can come up with all come under the same rubric of Agenda 21.
Well,
All
one of the
of them.
one of the biggest ones, and this is where I want to hit the most here, is the sustainable development, because a lot of us are concerned where it comes to Mother Earth, our planet here, between the fracking, the pipelines, And so they have this green agenda, and it's being pushed through different organizations. And sadly, a lot of people don't realize what they're a part of.
Well, of
And
course not. Now, please let me jump in here,
okay,
because what you're describing here is exactly the Hegelian dialectic that they use on us in order to do what you have just said. Okay? They're promoting all this stuff and people are buying into it. How many millions of people bought into that little flick produced by Al Gore, An
yeah,
Inconvenient Truth? Okay? Well, it turns out that was a convenient lie, because all of that information has been proven to be completely bogus, and the whole thing was a hoax. And as I said to you before, I said, as far as I'm concerned, that man ought to have his Nobel Prize stripped from him before they tar and feather him.
well, kind of like I guess Obama was getting the Nobel Peace Prize
Yeah, yeah,
before
but
he even
that's,
became president.
yeah,
That's another
yeah,
show
but,
too.
yeah, that's entirely another show.
Go ahead.
But, I mean, the bottom line here is really this. We are being shown a whole number of issues, okay? A whole number of issues. Each one of them has a great deal of importance. Each one of them has a great deal of merit. Each one of them deserves a good fight. And I'm talking about issues like genetically modified foods, okay? Well, here's the thing. Genetically modified foods are part of that international control of everything I was talking about earlier, where they get to control the food supply. Well, what happens when you start genetically modifying food and feed crops? Okay, well, in the first place, what happens is that there is genetic drift across the land. And you know what? They can even arrange for that because they do weather control, which is all patented, which you can look up at the U.S. and World Patent Offices, and you'll see who owns what in terms of weather technology and exactly what they can do with it. And if you think they can't direct a hurricane, I suggest you go back and do your research before you make yourself look a little foolish.
Well, even CBC did a report on that with HARP, and people can Google it, HAARP, and they did a whole segment on that. And they've been capable of doing this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, correct me, D. I think since the 50s and 60s with the weather
Yeah,
modification.
those things were engineered, way back when, and they were all engineered. Bear in mind, every single one of them was engineered as a military weapon. Okay, none of this stuff was ever engineered at that time in order to control the weather, in order to control profit. Think of it. Do you remember the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd?
Oh yeah. Oh.
Where the whole thing, their whole getting back at the Dukes, it was the Dukes, right? Their whole getting back at the Duke brothers for the scam they pulled, okay, was to corner the orange juice commodity market, which the Duke brothers were trying to do. So think of it. If you can control the weather and you can direct a drought into the breadbasket of the Ukraine in Europe, for example, and kill off their wheat supply and grain supply, and then you're making speculation in stocks and commodities on the stock market, how much can you make if you can control the weather like that? And
It's
don't
endless.
forget, weather is traded as a commodity on the Chicago Stock Exchange.
I had no
Weather.
idea.
Oh, yeah,
Really?
weather is traded like a commodity on the Chicago Stock Exchange. Look it up. So
Wow.
these people are making bets on the weather. And really what they're doing is they're making bets politically, because politically a lot of these things are being directed because our governments are puppets and taking orders from somewhere else. But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes, yeah.
really important, I think, that people understand what the mechanisms are for them to have this kind of control. Because at this point in time, I'm looking at my neighbor and going, I didn't give them that control, did you? And they go, no, hell no. Well, who did? Well, I don't know. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. You know?
I love that, Dee.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You look around and there's all this stuff, and it's like growing like a bad weed around you, and you don't know where it came from. Now, when you understand the simplicity that I got, this is one of the simplest plans, and it is so precise and so easy to implement. Okay. But once you understand it, everything else makes sense. Otherwise, you're looking at this issue here and that issue there, and you can't see how they're connected, and you don't see how they interlink. You don't see why they're there. Why they're there is Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is the plan for what they intend after they rock the vote entirely. Because that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, well, UN Agenda 21 is what they have in place for the 21st century.
Which is us.
Yes, yeah. Well.
Okay, now we've just entered. We're in the first. Well, in the first 20% of the century, we've just passed 10%.
Hey.
Okay, so they are 1/10, at least 1/10 of the way along that path that they have laid out. And believe me, they have it laid out. Their expectations for what will happen over the next 100 years. Oh, yes, they have it planned and plotted out. Oh, yes, they do.
Well,
because they have kept with such integrity to the original plot. Now, let me outline for you the plot of how they do it. And then let's slot into place exactly what's going on. And we'll have all kinds of fun with that.
Okay, by all means.
But how they're doing it is very simple. It comes down to one simple principle. When it comes to laws made by the government of our democratic nations, there is only one thing that can override, overrule, wipe out, negate, cancel any one of those laws, and that is international law. International law is not person against person or city against city or whatever. This is country against country. And what they did was they created a network of international law in order to snare all of us. It's called trade alliances, trade agreements, trade groups. Now, we started a long time back in the last century with the outcroppings from the League of Nations, because after World War II, the League of Nations was there to so-called keep the peace, never again, all that good stuff. Lovely little thing, Hegelian dialectic there. We're here to keep the peace. Okay, but nobody asked them how they would do that. And this is how they intend to control everything, thereby keep the peace. So what did they do? Well, they aimed for this same trade concept that had been floating around for a couple of centuries already and had already been brought to fruition by such people as J.P. Morgan and John D. Rockefeller and the people who formed all those massive cartels at the front end of the 20th century. Okay? And what they did was they formed a little organization called the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. Okay? And the United Nations was being born all in the same time period. And what was happening was they were standardizing, trying to get bunches of countries to band together under the same rules so that they would stop being barriers to trade with all their nasty little sovereignties. Well, you can go all the way back into the Protocols of Zion if you have any faith in that document. I mean, whether you do or you don't, it's out there right now. You can see it. Henry Ford saw it in 1917 and commented just that. But the bottom line is, what is going on is that all roads are leading to Rome. Every single move that we make as a nation now is controlled not by our government, but by the trade alliances that we have made. Because every one of those trade alliances is international law. International law supersedes domestic law. And guess what other domestic law it supersedes? The Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Wow.
Because they are also domestic laws created by Parliament.
Yeah, but don't we have to enter into agreements, we the people, in order for this to take place? Because, I mean, really and truly, none of us have consented to this.
Well, you would think so. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and as I've been yelling the big question mark about it, I've been screaming at politicians saying, show me your mandate. Show me your mandate. Show me the law that lets you give away our sovereignty. Because I keep saying to these guys, you come to my door and ask for my vote, but you're not telling me when you elect me, I'm going to give away more of our sovereignty. And if you ever said that to anybody, would anybody vote for them? No. They wouldn't. They know we would say no. So they simply don't tell us. And all of this is done behind our backs in complete secrecy. This is why some MPs who are brave and have integrity and actually have an ounce of compassion and love for their country and for the people in it, like Brent Rathgeber from Alberta, who stood up last year and said, Mr. Harper, I'm sick and tired of being muzzled and sick and tired of representing your goals, not the goals of my constituents. And he left the Tory party.
We all know that between Harper and Obama, and a lot of leaders of countries here, you sit there and you do as you're told. If you don't,
well, yeah. I mean, let's not focus on those two. I mean, the big trade agreements that we signed in '94 onto the World Trade Organization. Well, that's the mother of all trade agreements. And when you dig in there, now here's something that's real interesting. I find this fascinating. Okay, and then there's another little trick that I find fascinating I'll go into after that. I find it really fascinating that if you want to investigate any trade agreement, now bear in mind they are all held in absolute confidentiality. These guys are sworn to secrecy. The people negotiating are not elected, they're appointed. We don't know who they are. Okay? We have no ability to censure them or to do anything with them, no authority over them whatsoever, but they're negotiating on our behalf, supposedly, in complete secrecy.
It's for your safety, though. It's for your safety.
No, it's for the safety of the patentable products that they're protecting through the trade agreements.
Oh, trust me, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, but you see, they do all of this in complete secrecy because if any of it got out, there'd be a stink like you wouldn't believe. And in the meantime, they'll say on the public level and all the mainstream media, they will say things like, oh, we're negotiating this wonderful trade agreement, and we're going to be able to do this, that, and the other. It'll create about 50,000 new jobs. Only thing they don't tell you is those 50,000 new jobs are going to be filled by the immigrants that are coming to Canada from China to fill those jobs. Or some other country.
Well, I know, and I mean, it's crazy how they do that.
Well, it's not.
Well, they've been gutting us.
Though. Oh, Kevin, this stuff is so beautifully planned. I mean, if it wasn't so ding-blasted evil, I mean, I'd be hanging laurel wreaths on their heads. This is so good, right? This is how really, really good this plan is, which is why it's been so really, really hard for us all to crack. Because we've been attacking all of the heads of the hydra, and every time we hit one of them, 2 more grow back. You know, so this is how we've been playing it. We've been going after all the little bones they're tossing us. Oh, chase the GMO labeling. No, you twits, it's not about the labeling, it's about the GMOs themselves. They are going to take over the food supply because of genetic drift. And we can't stop it. And labels can't stop that. And they can direct the weather any way they want. They can make those pollen bits go anywhere they want.
Well, and that's
Just
why
like
it's
driving a car. And then what? What? Everybody turns into Percy Schmeiser from Saskatchewan, the guy who got sued because Monsanto's GMO canola, which is rapeseed, got into Percy's natural canola field, infected it. Then they sue him for growing their patented seeds, which brings me to the TRIPS rules. Okay, I was about to tell you that I found it very strange that all of the information about these secret individual trade groups, and the terms that they are instituting in these trade groups, you won't find it on the website that they set up for it, but that's where you'll go to look ordinarily. Oh, gee, I want to look into the CETA. Okay, so you go and you look up the CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement with the European Union. Okay, so you go onto that website, you go looking for all the details, and there aren't a hell of a lot of them because it's secret. Okay, well, where are the terms? They're on the World Trade Organization website. They're hidden in plain sight. Now, if you look under section on the World Trade Organization website under the title of sovereignty, it says, and I'm almost quoting, I'm certainly paraphrasing, okay, that in exchange for actually, let me start a little earlier in the paragraph. It says that the international trade agreement is an enforceable contract. Read that, enforceable contract. That means if you break it, you get sued. Okay?
Yep.
You've heard of the NAFTA lawsuits. There's thousands of those going on worldwide. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of those suits.
Well, we got to do like we got to do like Iceland did and just
This stream got to go on, Kev. Right now,
okay.
This stream got to go on. This is heavy duty stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what you're looking at is you're looking secret trade agreements being done in secret, where the information about their conditions, their terms and conditions under which they're all set up, is on another website where you wouldn't even think to look. So it's hidden in plain sight. It's under sovereignty, okay, for one part. And it says that in exchange for the benefits of belonging to this group under this enforceable international contract, signatory nations agree to govern their sovereignty according to the wishes of the group. Okay? That means all legislation pertaining to anything covered by this trade agreement must be approved by the trade group, not your parliament, not your Senate, not your prime minister, not your governor general, not your people of Canada, but by the trade group. And who's the trade group? Well, we got one chair at the table. One guy. We don't even know who the heck he is. But he's one guy defending it in the World Trade Organization. He got 153 members. We got one seat.
Who's that one seat?
One seat, one vote. Now, our vote is a little bit more important because we have senior status at the UN, okay? But all those other nations, they all got one vote. So if you rig the vote at the UN, which if you think there's lobbyists in Ottawa, you ought to see that building.
Yeah.
Okay, you have no idea. There are people running around speaking 190 different languages, and they're all lobbyists. Okay, all pushing for the UN to set things up through the trade agreements their way. Okay, now once these trade agreements are set up, they are internationally enforceable. For example, the Codex Alimentarius Commission, which is setting food standards, basically negating all of our access to natural food products, including essential vitamins and supplements around the world, limiting our access, and with the ultimate goal of synthesizing all of them so that they're useless. Now, the Codex Alimentarius Commission is the brainchild of the World Health Organization, which came out of the Food and Agriculture Administration. Okay. Now, when the World Health Organization wants enforcement done, it goes to the World Trade Organization, and we find out that Codex Alimentarius violations will be prosecuted by the World Trade Organization. So you see, one hand is not only washing the other, it's holding the other. Okay, now you see there is an agenda here. You can see that agenda, can't you?
Yeah.
It's real easy. It's all being governed via the UN. Now, that's not to say that the UN is the top of the pile, because they're not.
That's another.
That's another show. That's another show. Get your ladder, take us up a few floors. Okay, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're getting
steps.
there. This is a visible target. This is a visible target. That's a good thing. Okay, and bear in mind, I just said everything's hidden in plain sight. You do not have to be a genius to find this information. They hide it in plain sight because they have to have plausible deniability, don't they? When the people go, but you didn't inform us, they say, oh yes, we did, it's right here. Not my fault you didn't see it.
Well, I know, and that's the one thing people don't realize. Like even, I remember when NAFTA, I think it was NAFTA, or the North American Security Perimeter was signed by Stockwell Day. I just coincidentally happened to be renting down the street from where Stockwell Day's house here is in the Okanagan. And it was on page 7, very small article. And I cut it out. And I just, I went and knocked on his door quite a few times there. And I wanted to ask him, like, where do you think you got the right to do this? But he was always in Ottawa there. But yeah.
Funny how they're always in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, he's not at his desk.
Well,
I don't know where he is.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah. Like, because the one thing, like, and I may sway you off a little bit here. Like, one of the things that, like, why I started supporting locals is because of what we're talking about right now. And the message that we promote is we got to take it all back locally, starting by supporting your local business, your local farmers, but more importantly, your local government. So a lot of this is being implemented through local government because local government has forgotten the powers that they had, where they can abstain for almost just about anything. And they just keep changing it and changing it. And we could stop this. We could have stopped this a long time ago, and we still can. We absolutely still can. But how are they doing this through local governments? Are you able to tie that in there?
Oh, well, yes, but I want to preface what I say about that with, I have to point out to you, Kevin, that what you are doing with locals supporting locals is you are promoting exactly the correct thing to do when you have an economy under stress. You circle the wagons, you micromanage, you take care of each other in small groups the way we always did when the population of the earth was small.
Yeah.
This is when people empower each other. You cannot collectivize and then empower the world. Now, if you will notice, however, this is what I love about what you're doing. I mean, I've always been behind locals supporting locals because I think it's just great, and I want to see it. I just want to see people expanding and using it all over the place because it is exactly the opposite of what Agenda 21 promotes, which is completely collectivism globally. It's global collectivism. Everything run the same way. Everybody be good little doobies. Right?
Well, you can, yeah, and they do it through a green agenda too, because you should care about Mother Earth, right?
Oh well, yeah, that's the Hegelian dialectic. You
Yeah.
can't possibly be against taking care of Mother Earth, can you? Well, no, I'm not against taking care of Mother Earth, but here's the thing: I'm not for the method you propose for taking that care. And that's the second question that people don't get to. Because I can remember back when we were, and you were involved back then too, Bill C-36,
Yes.
Bill C-36. You remember Leona Aglukkaq, our then health minister, talking about Bill C-36, the Consumer Product Safety Act, okay? And she was saying things like, oh, well, if we don't pass this act, then the government won't have the power to act, and we're going to have stacks of dead babies piling up from faulty baby cribs, right? So if you disagreed with her, then you were for stacking up dead babies and faulty baby cribs.
Yes.
This is what it is. It's a word trap.
Yep.
It's a word trap. So when they say, are you for taking care of Mother Earth? Yeah, but not your way. Okay? This is where people need to make the distinction. Yeah, we are trashing Mother Earth instead of taking care of her. Yeah, we are polluting Mother Earth instead of keeping her clean. Yeah, back in the 50s, we did more true recycling than they're thinking of doing right now. They're creating a recycling industry that needs recycling. Okay, back when I was growing up, and even when you were growing up, milk got delivered to a chute at the back door in a glass bottle, and we gave the bottle back. Pop came in glass bottles that got taken back to the store for a recycling refund. And they actually recycled their bottles. They had bottle washing plants. They refilled the same bottles. They used them until they were no longer usable.
Well, it's funny you say that because I worked at Pepsi. That was my first big company union job, was working at Pepsi Cola back in the day when it was a bottling plant where you had 3 lines going. I mean, that place almost never shut down. There was 36 guys per line.
Yep.
And then when they brought in the plastic, all of a sudden you drop from 36 down to 6 guys. And now look at the mess we're in.
Yeah, now look at the mess. And where does that come from, the plastic? It comes from oil, doesn't it?
Yep.
Now, we were using glass and recycling the glass in its original form. We weren't breaking it down. We weren't creating another pile of mess to break down something that we already made in order to use it in something else. We were taking it and cleaning it, refilling it, and recapping it.
Yeah, I remember standing there separating the green bottles, the 7-Up bottles from the Pepsi bottles, the clear bottles.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And we got 2 cents back per bottle, right? So, and all of our groceries were in paper bags. And when they went in the garbage, they went in the landfill, and they helped the landfill because they rotted back into the wood form they came from.
Yeah.
So you talk about the green generation, I'm laughing my butt off. This generation is no more green than my Aunt Fanny.
I know. Well, today, like I've said, I say often, green is black and smart is dumb. So, can we touch upon here, because, I mean, I attended these meetings here. Something came to town here, and I was out with my first calendar, and I was handing out flyers, going around letting everybody know who local supporting locals was, and I got contacted from a group, Transition Town,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and they asked me to come and meet with them, and so I did. And they liked what I had to say, and they said, how would you like to attend one of our meetings and, tell the people what you're doing? So I said, sure, that sounds great. And next thing you know, we're sitting at like a board meeting where there's about, I think there was about 7 to 9 of us, and we're discussing all the like a lot of the issues like GMOs and so many issues that we're concerned about today, and almost everybody at the table knew at least a little bit about everything. I'm very well aware of a lot of the issues. And again, once people start to get educated on this, once you understand the language, it's written everywhere, and um, and so I skipped home, I thought, like, yay, we're saved right here in Penticton. People know we're working towards the solutions, and this is fantastic. And yeah, and I
I
have a
smell
very
it coming. I
yeah.
smell it coming, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I had a very, very smart, educated friend, and I threw it out to him. And, I said, listen, I said, you got to come down and attend one of these meetings. I said, this is super fantastic. I mean, like, this is what I've been looking for. And this is what I started supporting locals for, because I knew, the agenda that they had at hand. And I'm like, okay, and it's like you said, and thank you very much, Dee, for those kind words about locals supporting locals there. But I knew in order to stop the corporatization and this agenda that they have, keep your money local. And so, I sent him the link, and then he sends me back the following day. He says, take a look at this," and it came from the Freedom of Advocates, out of the USA, and it says, transition into what? And throughout the whole article, it breaks down what Transition Town is all about and how it links all the way back to the UN, and it's got all the links to back it up. And sure enough, I
Okay.
mean, yeah,
Yep, yep. Now let me point out, because you just exposed something. I don't think you knew it when you did it, but you just exposed a neat little method that they use. Okay? The question was posed, transition into what?
exactly.
Okay? Now, think back to Obama's last, or actually his first campaign for president. His bywords were change, hope, believe. Change to what? Hope for what? Believe in what? He never defined any of those things, but because the people liked the word, they followed along. Now, Transition Town is using the same thing. And we have to watch out for that, because Common Core education is being promoted the same way. If people give a negative reaction, they put a new label on it, package it differently, and send it out the same thing. Okay, they're doing the same thing here in Ontario. They are promising to reintroduce the sexual education agenda that starts little kids. We're talking little kids here, into really inappropriate sex education in the very early grades, including kindergarten. Now, this is the same premier who was education minister at the time that they came out with this stuff. The reaction from parents across the province was so violent, they put it on the back burner. But when they say, we're putting it on the back burner for now, you know what that means. They're
Yeah,
bringing it back. And here's the thing. If you start looking at what other governments and what other education systems are doing around the world, gee, they're all doing the same thing. So when you come into Agenda 21, you realize you cannot do Agenda 21, which is a global system of population management, without doing from the bottom up as well. And this is where organizations like Transition Town, the World Urban Forum, and ICLEI,
Yep.
come into play. Okay? Now,
Okay,
ICLEI...
but before you say that, before you get into this here, for the viewers that are listening live and the ones that will be listening here, Google ICLEI, ICLEI, and it shows you a list of
The
which
website,
cities.
Kevin, is ICLEI.org. Go right there. It's just ICLEI.org. Now, they have 8 urban agendas.
Well,
Okay?
what I wanted to say there, Dee, was check to see if your city or town is actually registered
Yeah,
in there.
they've got a list. They've got a list, and you might be amazed at how long you've been a member of ICLEI. Now,
Yep.
I'm going to read to you one very quick little paragraph from their Local Action for Global Change page. This is titled ICLEI's 8 Urban Agendas. This is for municipalities, okay? ICLEI's work pursues 8 agendas designed to support cities and local governments to become sustainable, resilient, resource efficient, biodiverse, low carbon, to build a smart infrastructure, and to develop an inclusive green urban economy with the ultimate aim to achieve healthy and happy communities.
That sounds
Okay?
beautiful, Dee. Why are we even talking about this? Why aren't we just signing? Why aren't we signing up? That sounded beautiful.
Yeah, I know. It sounds beautiful, but then it's how? Through what means? Well, through what Agenda 21 sees as, because it's a UN thing, like, for example, water policy. Now, we live in a water-abundant nation, and we control our own water supply, or at least we did until Harper took the helm. Okay, now a lot of our water is being shipped south, and Canadians would be shocked beyond measure if they had any clue how badly affected the aquifers that feed our families are affected. They would be shocked, and they need to look into it. But the thing is, your water, okay, your electricity, your energy, other kind of energy, these things are all municipal concerns. They're governed municipally. So in order to make Agenda 21 work, which is basically to bring everything under multinational corporate control, all under the same rules, they had to control the cities and the towns as well. So they go to ICLEI, and ICLEI promotes, oh, look at these lovely adjectives: sustainable, resilient, resource efficient, biodiverse, low carbon, smart infrastructure, blah, 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 healthy and happy. Sounds wonderful. Let's go for it. The only thing is that the way that these 8 urban agendas are accomplished is via Agenda 21. So in other words, what they're going to do is they're going to want to privatize your water. Okay?
And they're already doing that too, eh? And
Yeah, they are. They want to privatize your post. They want to privatize your energy systems. They want to privatize your water. They want to privatize everything. They want to own everything.
Well, I mean,
Everything.
well, for those who have picked up the locals calendar there, because in the first 4 pages we have a lot of information pertaining to what's taking place here. It leads right back to their websites. But because of, like, it's a 40-page calendar on 13 months, it should be 26 pages. So it's a very thick calendar. But right at the back of the calendar, there's the article on Nestle and how they, here in BC, out of our Fraser River, they've stolen, what is it? They got 2.73 million liters of water they were caught stealing out of the Fraser River. Now, that's what they got caught for, you know? So, yeah, and they're taking it for free. They bottle it.
Hang on. I got a better one for you.
Okay, wait. Actually, actually, hang on here, because I've been informed that we can actually go past the hour here. So what I'd like to do, is just take a quick break here for a couple of minutes here, and then let's come back and
Need to catch your breath, do you?
yes. Okay. So we'll be back in about 3 minutes here. Thank you.
Good, then I can get off idle.
You're listening to Awake Radio. Straight talk for the awake and aware.
Thank you, and welcome back here. We just finished, or where we went to break there was on the part where we were discussing local governance here, ICLA, transition towns here. So if you want to continue here, Dee, that would be great.
Oh, I want to continue. To me, this is like good sex.
Oh.
I gotta get a life.
Well, hopefully everybody. Hopefully everybody enjoys the chuckle in between. Like this is, I mean, it's very serious stuff at the end of the day here.
It is, but it's horribly overwhelming. And the thing is that if you can't see it objectively, it's going to drive you nuts. So you really have to look at it like the general in a battle. Okay, they put the general on a hill for a reason. Okay, the general in a battle has to be on the highest point of land so he can see what he's facing. Well, now they don't have to do that because they got drones and stuff. But bottom line is, in the old days when everybody did everything by hand. Okay, the general was always on the top of the hill, and that's so he could see which flank was advancing and which one was, retreating, and this and that, and what to do with his own troops. Well, when it comes to fighting all this stuff, if you can't see it from on top and accept what it is for what it is, just accept it. There it is. You cannot do anything about it unless you understand it. It's the same with any human problem. If you don't understand it, don't touch it. If your car breaks down and you aren't a mechanic, don't mess with it.
Call a mechanic.
Right? Same deal. Well, some mechanics too. but at any rate, I mean, you got to understand it. In order to do that, you have to start from the top and look down. And when you understand that all these efforts at the municipal level and the local level, and as you were mentioning during the break, the theft of farmland, in BC, and it's not just BC, it's happening. You wouldn't believe what's going on in the States right now. And it's not exactly difficult to drive people off their land when you control the weather and everything else, is it?
Well, if you look at the Bundy farm, they actually initiated that one, and by all means, there is a Facebook page for the Bundy farm here, the cattle rancher there. They initially went after his ranch farm in order to protect the painted turtle.
Yeah, that was the excuse that they used in order to do the Chinese land deal.
Yeah.
Initiated by none other than Senator Harry Reid.
Yeah.
Okay. Senator Harry Reid made a deal for a solar wind farm on that acreage.
Yep.
And he had no right to do it because that family had heritage rights on that property from 1887.
Well, the thing that people need to realize too, and I mean, because if you look at the land around the Bundy farm, like there's so many places they could have put that. But the thing, what it was is because he is a cattle rancher, and a very, very, very big cattle rancher. And for them, it's all about controlling the food, as we were discussing earlier here.
Well, there's that too. Although he's only got a couple of thousand cows, and that's not exactly much of a dent in the meat market. But the bottom line, Kevin, is that this was actually part of a land deal set up by Hillary Clinton right after Obama got elected and made her Secretary of State. because she went over to China. China controlled 36% of U.S. Treasury debt. That's enough to put America in the tank. And they were terrified because China was already starting to sell off that U.S. Treasury debt. So Hillary went over there and she wanted to make sure that it was secure. Okay? And what she did was she guaranteed the U.S. Treasury debt to China with U.S. land. She backed it up. And the company that was going to come in and make money off that land was being sold that land at an 87% discount. There's your land deal made by Hillary Clinton. You think this stuff isn't dirty? Oh, is it dirty? It's really dirty. And then in comes the little excuse of that painted turtle. And there might be 3 or 4 of them running around in that desert, but, you know.
Well, when you said, like he only has a couple of thousand cattle. At the end of the day, okay, because again, I'm going to point this out. People, don't be afraid of what's going on. Information is knowledge. It's what you do with it. If you want
power. It is your power. And here's the thing. I really, because...
Okay, if I can just finish this point here. Yes, I know we're both very passionate, Dee. I know. But the thing is,
we need beer.
Well, the thing is when you take it back locally, I mean, that man's farm, those few thousand heads of cattle can feed a lot of people.
Well, sure they can. The only point I'm making is it would be an awfully slow process indeed if that's what they had to do across the country. And it would be an impossible process for them to do because so many people would start uprising. So they're boiling this frog very slowly.
Oh, yes, they are.
And they're putting in place things that are going to make it possible for them to pull off things like eminent domain. Canadians think they don't have eminent domain, but, we have the word expropriation.
Yes.
We also have a notwithstanding clause in our Constitution that says, in the best interests of the nation, your rights go bye-bye. So it's already hidden in plain sight. Now, when your nation has signed a trade agreement internationally, and it might violate that trade agreement to the tune of billions of dollars in sanctions and fines, okay, they're not going to give one hairy hoot about your rights or mine or anyone else's. They're going to trample all over them using the notwithstanding clause, which states, again, in the best interests of the nation, we can take your rights away. Well, if you will notice, and I saw Jonathan Emord, you may have heard of him, he's #1 FDA fighting attorney in the United States. He's like the U.S. version of our Sean Buckley. And Jonathan Emord was commenting a while back that he was amazed to see U.S. judges incorporating international law into their decisions. Well, why are they doing that? Agenda 21. Through the UN, through the trade agreements. They're using the trade agreements as the mechanism of control. If you can put everything under international agreements, you can control everything, and you can knock out any power that any nation has to fight for itself. That's how they've done it. It's that simple. Then they have on top of that this little thing called the TRIPS rules. TRIPS is an acronym for Trade-Related Intellectual Properties. Trade-related intellectual properties are another name for patents. Now, let's look at GMOs, okay? Genetically modified organisms. Why is Monsanto winning in court all over the place? Why are they being given concessions? Because all of their products are patented. And under the trade agreements, if they invest their money in our nation by setting up an office or hiring staff or doing anything like that in our nation, we have to pay them back by guaranteeing their profits. Okay? We have to guarantee their profits. Now, the government of Ontario over the last few years signed a great big hydro deal for reactors with Japan. Okay, with Samsung. Okay, now they got out of that deal because there was such a stink about it that, you know, they just literally had to cancel the contract. Well, the problem was they didn't tell anybody. The cancellation fee was the profits for 20 years. The expected profits for 20 years of Samsung operating this project. So Ontarians are stuck paying through their taxes billions of dollars because we canceled a contract. And this is exactly the kind of power that every trade group has over Canada, over the United States, over Britain, over all of us. This is the power they have. They guarantee each other the right to make a profit. Then they set up everything. All the rules are set up so that local means nothing. It's all collectivized. You may live in a local community. It may look like a local community, but it's part of a massive collective. Now, when you've got all these different agreements, and here's the kicker. This is a beaut, okay? So everybody listen up to this one. When you have, as I said at the top of the show, thousands of these trade agreements, it's like thousands of individual kids who are unrelated. They're just thrown into a sandbox together, okay? How many fights do you figure are going to break up with thousands of kids? Lots, right?
Yeah.
So when you've got thousands of kids in the same sandbox and there are little fights popping up, what do you need? You need mommy. Okay? You need an authority. And do you know who that authority is? That authority is your new one world government.
The UN.
No, it's not it won't be the UN by then. But it is your one world government right there. That's how they're doing it, through the trade groups, through these trade alliances. And they give you the Hegelian dialectic. And they say, surely you're not against trade, are you? No, I'm not against honest free trade on a handshake. I am totally against free trade agreements that create international law and force us to give up our sovereignty and force us to give up our way of life. That I'm against.
Okay, just for people to know here, and if I miss a name here, please throw it in here. Like when Dee just said genetically modified organisms, Monsanto, people need to understand that is not the only company that's out to patent everything.
Oh no.
Here. No,
oh no, and it's not even the only. Monsanto is only one brand they own. Okay, so I mean they own a whole bunch of other biotech companies. There's biotech companies coming out from people's armpits these days because it's the big money-making thing to get into.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you want to feed the world, right? Because I mean, according to them, okay, and this is another thing we don't subscribe to with locals supporting locals is overpopulation. Here in Canada, we're 35 million people. That's where I operate from. So we don't subscribe to that. But it's about feeding the world, right? You want to feed the world is what they promote. And it's the same thing like we got here in Summerland with the Okanagan specialty fruits with the non-browning apple. When you go to their website, of course, it looks all green. They got the pretty apples, they got the pretty fruits and everything else like that. They never indicate on there that it is a genetically modified apple. It's a non-browning apple. You know, so what they've done is they've gone inside to the seed, shut down the immune system to actually make it turn brown. So you can cut into that apple, lay it on the table. It can sit there for 2 weeks and look like you just cut it yesterday. But meanwhile, what it did is it shut down the mechanism to let you know that, hey, I'm rotting, I'm not good to eat, you know. So, I mean, how does that benefit anyone, you know? But I want to point out to people here so that they understand how the company name that they use here in Canada is DeKalb, DEKLB. Okay, that is the extension of Monsanto here. But you also got Syngenta, Dole, DuPont, Dow. Am I forgetting one, D?
Oh, you're probably forgetting about a dozen.
Okay, those are the big players.
Yeah, well, you see, as far as I'm concerned, if it comes from a player I've heard of, I won't buy it.
Yeah. You know what, though? If it comes from a farmer, that's why I go straight out to the farms now.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
unfortunately, I live in Toronto. I don't have that option.
I know, and that's the difficult part here, you know. And I mean, I got to admit, I mean, I did locate myself where I am right
Well,
now.
no, wait. That brings up something super important on Agenda 21.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me not leave this out. Under Agenda 21, if you dig into the document, and it is online, just Google it, you can read the whole thing. Right? They don't hide this stuff. It's right there. You want to go and find it, you can find it, but you got to read with a very careful eye. A very careful eye. But the thing about the Agenda 21 is actually, as I said, it's a method of controlling your population completely. Okay? The solution to it, of course, to our problems, all our problems, is micromanagement, which is what you're doing. Again, bravo. But Agenda 21's goal here is to entirely collectivize everything, all under the same rules. They call it harmonization. We in natural health called it harmonization. You know, we emphasize the HARM part of the word. And if you look very carefully, what you will see is that you've got food control coming out from several factors. It's a multi-pronged attack on our food. You've got, and bear in mind, people like Henry Kissinger have often been quoted as saying, if you want to control a nation, control its food. Because it takes roughly, the estimates are, 3 days for a population to go insane when there's no food. 3 days. So, when you are controlling what is grown, genetically modified, because you own all the patents, and you are trying to cull the population at the same time because they got too many ding-blasted cows on their land, okay, they say. And we were talking about overpopulation. What a joke. You could take the entire population of the world. Now, they wouldn't have elbow room, but you could take the entire population of the world and stand them all up in the state of Texas. And you can fit the state of Texas into the province of Ontario or the province of BC several times.
So, yeah, I know. I know the one of the documentaries I saw there too. They said in Australia, you can fit them all in there and give them all an acre of land, and you still wouldn't even take up Australia. You know, so. Oh
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And then people need to understand as well. If you look through history here, I think they tried it back in the 1300s with the overpopulation, 1500s, 1700s, and it was right back until I think it was 1975 or in the 70s, where if by 1985, and this is where they made the mistake, they put a date. If by 1985, if we haven't done something, this world is going to be in just utter chaos. And I mean, they create the worst disaster possible. And we're in 2014, right? How many are we here in Canada now, D?
Well, 30, what's our population now?
33, I think, or 35 million.
30,
I mean,
33 point something, I think.
Yeah. So,
and you know what? We've got a third of the population of the country in the province of Ontario. How's that possible?
Well,
okay,
you know,
and not only that, most of Ontario is vacant land. Okay, how do you figure that? But I got it. This is the point I wanted to mention about Agenda 21.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things Agenda 21 states is, get this, private property ownership is not sustainable. In other words, they're saying that if wealthier people own all the private property, there won't be any place for the poor people. Okay, so they're going to rob from the rich and give to the poor. They say only it's not the rich they're robbing from, it's the middle class. One of the goals of Agenda 21 is to implement in North America at least Rex 84, which was a plan put together by Zbigniew Brzezinski and the Trilateral Commission way back when, and they essentially want to rewild North America and herd everybody into cities. Now, what I find real interesting on that score is everything we're talking about is being done globally. So then I look at some of the news reports that have been coming out of China, saying that China has built these mega cities out in the boonies and nobody's in them. They're fully built. They got, theaters, restaurants. You've heard of that, right?
Yeah, well, it's happening here in Penticton too. I mean, we're like 35,000 in the off season, and it used to be about 75,000 in the in season here because it is one of the tourist capitals of Canada here, and we have so many empty condos here, and yet they want to start building up on the hill. But at the same token, too, what they're also creating is smart towns.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. They want everybody under these smart grids because that's total control, because you get to monitor everybody. It's like one of those sci-fi movies where you can't do anything privately in your home because there's always a camera or a microphone listening to you, right? There's no privacy anymore. And what they've already got in our homes with smart meters that they forced on us, which are, again, patented goods.
Yes.
Okay? You see how that works? Okay? I mean, man, these buggers have it. They have it down. Like I said, if it wasn't so ding-blasted evil, you would have to call it the most brilliant thing you'd ever seen in your life. Because there it is. It's simple. It's direct. It acts on one simple legal principle, which is international supersedes domestic. And all they did was build around that one thing and push it forward. And then when they pushed it forward and they realized they would have resistance at the low end, they formed ICLEI, they formed the World Urban Forum, and get this, there's also a World Council on Religion founded roughly around the same time as the Food and Agriculture Organization and the Codex Alimentarius Commission. So what they're planning with religion, they've already taken over the New Age. Okay, the New Age spirituality isn't even spiritual anymore.
I know. I mean,
it's pathetic.
I feel bad.
I'm an old practitioner of the old and aficionado of the old ways, and I'm also, and I have to point it out. Just because you know something about the old ways does not mean you stop being a Christian. Because once you realize what the old ways are, you'll realize that the rules don't change. It's all about you sow what you reap. You put it out there, you're going to get it. You don't do harm to anything. You honor everyone and everything as a creation of the Creator. Okay? Where's there a difference? I don't see one.
Well,
they've created all these wars, right? Around religion beliefs, and now they've got Christians and Muslims fighting too. You think that's not part of Agenda 21? Oh, yes, it is.
Well, yeah, but the so-called Al Qaeda there, that CIA fraction there. I mean, yeah, you can see the countries that were not partaking in this. That's where the wars are at right now. When went into Afghanistan, they would not comply with the one world order, and so therefore, and of course they wanted the poppies too.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. When they went into Afghanistan, okay, one of their purposes, and I think because they used excuses, never was it an issue that Afghanistan was involved. It was never an issue that Afghanistan was involved. But what Afghanistan did was they refused to say whether Osama bin Laden was hiding there. That's why they got invaded, because they refused to talk. Well, that was a good enough excuse, but it was a pretty damn flimsy excuse as far as I'm concerned. So what was the real reason? Well, Afghanistan happens to produce 90-something% of the world's opium poppies, and that was under threat from some warlords. So they went in there, and Canadian troops were guarding the poppy fields.
Well, yeah. But don't forget, though, because, I mean, they saw what they wanted. And so they had reduced the poppy plants by, it was down to like 30.
Well, the Taliban they brought the poppy production way down. Okay, the Taliban was, because they are the strict Muslims, right? And the Taliban because they don't believe in drugs, they had cut down on poppy production by a massive percentage. And so all of that was about getting it back. And when the CIA went in there, of course, they're up to, what was it, the second year after the invasion of Afghanistan, they went back up to nearly 200% of what they were before. I mean, the story is incredible. And then when you go over to Libya, this is where it gets really dirty, because what you have is a guy who had turned his country from a desert into an oasis, from a country that was ruled by a real dictator by the name of King Idris, kicked that guy out in a bloodless coup, turned the place into an oasis, gave his citizens, each one got about $15K US every year from the oil revenues. All post-secondary education was paid for, no matter where you went for it, even postgraduate. Medical care, dental care, mental health care, and housing, all covered. And Gaddafi swore that he would not live in a house himself until every Libyan who wanted one had a house, and he kept that promise. And he built the man-made river system, which was one of the first things that NATO bombed into oblivion.
Well, they had one of the cleanest...
Why did they do it? The issue is why.
They had one of the cleanest aquifers, one of the most beautiful aquifers down there, too.
It was pure as glass, okay? And what was the reason why they did this? Well, for the last 10, 15 years or so, Gaddafi had been encouraging all of the national leadership in the something like 37 different nations on the continent of Africa to go to a gold-backed dinar for their currencies. And, of course, the IMF couldn't handle that.
No.
So I found it real interesting that 2 weeks into the no-fly zone, and this is while Gaddafi was still in control of Libya, all of a sudden, the IMF, which had no business being there in the first place, the IMF steps in and establishes the Central Bank of Benghazi. Now, the Central Bank of Benghazi had no reason to exist because Benghazi wasn't the country. Central banks are national banks. And they didn't have control of the nation, so where did they get off establishing it? Well, a few weeks later, they'd murdered Gaddafi. And after all of that went down, guess what flag was flying over the Central Bank of Benghazi? The Al-Qaeda flag.
Oh, isn't that?
Now, isn't that fascinating? And of course, now they're all back. Now, Iraq still doesn't have its own currency. Their currency is not being traded on the world market. They're being held up. There's all kinds of kerfuffle going on in apparently in Kabul right now. Again, they got all kinds of mess going on, and these people haven't even got their currency back. 3 nations right off the hop over the last few years who've been trashed back to the Stone Age. Then you go back to Czechoslovakia, and now we can look at the Ukraine. So what's going on here? Well, you know what? All these people getting attacked, as you said, all these nations getting attacked, all these nations being targeted for, quote, regime change, end quote, are the ones who are arguing with their puppet masters. They're saying Agenda 21, shove it where the sun don't shine, pal. And the next thing that happens is Obama comes in with the U.S. Army. So there you go. In the meantime, while they're trying to keep, things relatively calm in the Ukraine because people know so much, but behind the scenes, the IMF has already offered the Ukraine a bribe of $18 billion, but they can only have the money if they take back Kiev.
Really, eh?
Yeah, so
I know there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, and this is the thing that people need to realize is if you think that what is going on in the Ukraine is entirely unrelated to your own personal battle against GMOs, think again. Because it's all part of the same agenda. GMOs are part of the agenda. The Ukraine is part of the agenda. Taking over nations that won't agree is part of the agenda. If they won't agree, buy them with money, indebt them forever, and then strangle them with debt.
Okay, so let's go back to now that you say that too. The one thing I've noticed going across Canada, right here in Penticton, BC as well, is speaking of putting them in debt, is these new revitalization programs are where they want to beautify your community here, and where are the cities getting their money for these programs? So they paved the streets, they changed the sidewalks. And especially here in Penticton, what they just did, they paved the street and they made it so that it was a wider sidewalk, and you're like, wow, okay, that's kind of cool. And then you realize it's actually so the car can drive up there and park on a fancy sidewalk as opposed to the street. And it's just like, okay, this doesn't make sense. But apparently, from what I understand, and if you can, correct me or tell me if I'm right or wrong here, a lot of this money is being borrowed from the IMF. And that in turn puts you into debt. And now you've made a deal with the devil here. And so when you can't pay your debt, or you have to implement these agendas to go along with this.
Yeah, well, their goal is not to free you from slavery. Their goal is to enslave you. And you can read everything backwards like it's being said in front of a mirror. Because when they say freedom and when they say equality, they mean anything but. They don't mean equality in the good sense. They mean equally poor. Right? And that's what they're making us. If you look at the statistics, okay, today on CBC, they were talking about how the rich got 14.6% richer. How's that possible when the rest of us are starving?
I know.
Well, that's because they're controlling. Now, listen to this part, because it pertains to LSL. Okay? Here's the thing. You go to your supermarket, okay? And you look at all that lovely produce and all the products, and they're from all over the place, right? You look at your produce, and you don't get, even in the summertime, as much locally grown stuff as we used to. Although they do make a little bit of an effort.
No, well, not at the Safeways, anyways.
Well, in Ontario, they do make a little bit of an effort to promote Ontario grown. Okay?
Oh yeah. But don't forget, Alex Adamanenko wrote about this in the second annual calendar here, how they changed the term local. So even if it comes from 50 miles across the border, they can turn it local.
Exactly. What's local? Local to what?
Yeah, exactly. That's
local
their
to
term.
What?
And that's according to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the one that's supposed to look after our food, the protection of our Canadian food. And meanwhile, as opposed
to Harper's Weekend, yes.
Yes, the ones that didn't catch the E. coli breakout there at the Alberta farm there in Brooks there. What was that? The name of that company there with the beef? Excel, I think it was Excel or something.
Oh, it was Excel. It was Excel Meat Products, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually the Americans, okay? And I mean, people, please, that are listening here, Canada had the highest standards when it came to our food and our inspection and everything else, and it got by, our health inspection here, and it was the Americans that caught the E. coli, and they're like, oh, oh, you know.
And don't forget, you had Shiv Chopra on. Okay? Now, Shiv Chopra comes out of Health Canada in veterinary science. Okay? And Shiv Chopra also says that we used to have state-of-the-art testing facilities in Canada. They sold them. They sold them.
Well, here's the scary part too. People don't realize like what XL meets. Like, and I didn't realize this either. I mean, I don't like I do. Like, I'm very fortunate where I am, where I'm able to go out and support my local farmers and get organic beef or natural raised beef here. But apparently,
like
XL
you cook.
What's that?
Oh, like you cook.
I'm a great cook. I worked in the restaurant for 13 years. Trust me, and I am single, ladies. If you're looking, I am single. I'm a great cook.
And he cleans up nice too, girls. He looks like Kevin Costner.
Well, actually, apparently, because of my high forehead and apparently my eyes, they call me Chief Capilano, or CM Capilano, as he prefers to be called. Term me Frankie Blue Eyes. He thinks
dear.
he thinks I look a little bit like Frank Sinatra there. But anyways, apparently XL Meats was actually supplying to 3/4 of Canada.
Uh-huh.
That is concerning to me. So look, they were having 5,000 head of cattle come through the front door. 5,000 cattle are coming out the back door. So if you notice, and I know you know this, and I remember as a kid, and it's amazing how much I appreciate this today, as much as I thought it was a big pain in the ass to go shopping with my mom and dad there. But my dad, he took the butcher course, and we would go down to a part in Montreal where there was like a street full of butcher shops, and you go in there and you could see the racks of cattle or the beef being brought in, and it's stored in the fridges, and and it was a smart thing back then. You order a quarter, half, or full cow, and people, we got to go back to this, okay? Order it that way. But he taught me all about beef, so I know my beef, and hanging it for, I think it's 1 week is A, 2 weeks is double A, triple A is 3 weeks hanging. Now, there's no beef hanging in any butcher shop in Canada.
Nothing's aged. It's all tenderized, not aged.
Well, that's how the E. coli broke out. They had it, and they showed it on CBC. Okay, again, people, they show it to you. But the thing is, they show you once, and if you didn't see it, you won't know about it. And just so people know, visit the Local Supporting Locals website, localsupportinglocals.ca. We put as much video and news as we can so that if you missed it, we got it, we post it. And when they tenderize the meats, when they stick those pointy needles right into the E. coli, and this is what happens and how E. coli gets into hamburger here, is when they ground it, all the E. coli gets mixed into the meat. So as steaks, it's not as prone to E. coli as hamburger here. But when they stick the needles in there, what the E. coli that was sitting on top now just went inside, and they even turned. They had the black lights. I forget the term that they use to show it here, but they turn on the black lights, and now you see it's right in the center of the beef. Mm-hmm. So if you eat your steak rare,
yeah, then you got a problem. Interesting, that needle track thing you mentioned, where the bacteria is going in with the injection, okay?
Yeah.
It's the same process that happens when they take biopsies of tumors, people.
Really?
Yeah, really. It's called a needle track.
So they're actually poking the cancer right into you then?
Well, yeah. I mean, well, they're actually, what they're doing is they're pulling it out of you, but they're pulling it along the needle track.
Oh, crap.
right? So they're bringing cancer cells outside the actual tumor body, which means that if any of them are going to go metastasize, they just made that possible. They don't tell you that beforehand when they ask you to sign the consent forms, though. That's another thing they want to control. Okay, let's not leave out healthcare, shall we?
Oh, I know. Well, actually, right here, Dee, believe it or not, and this really bothers me a lot because I was really involved with Idle No More, and I've noticed it's nothing but Idle now. Right here in West Bank, Kelowna, on the Indian Band Reserve, they're building the first private hospital.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and so, you know, I mean, people need to understand that we have to unite here, you know, like it's like that old, I think it's Spanish there, the people united can never be defeated.
Yeah.
You know, and we got to do that, you know, like we highly recommend that you start a local supporting local chapter where you are, okay? But in order to use the name, you have to follow a code of ethics, and by all means, go to the local supporting local.ca website, contact us, and we'll show you what we're doing here, and we want you to implement it where you are. There is no charge to this. This is from the heart, and we just want to show you what we're doing here. Okay, very, very, very important here, because these agendas cannot be applied worldwide. We don't fit into 3 categories, you know. Like I'm 5'7". I mean, I got to be honest. I'm on the air right now. If I'm out in public, or I'm 5'8". I sound so much taller when I say that. But technically, I'm supposed to be 150 pounds, you know, and the least I've gotten down to was 170, and I was a size 29 waist. If I went down to 150, if I turned sideways, you wouldn't see me. So they try to put us into like one of these 3 categories, and it doesn't work. Just here in the Okanagan alone, you go from Osoyoos all the way down to Vernon, or I think it might be Enderby. The growing conditions are so drastically different that you can't grow all the same things in that small area, which is actually big, but you can't grow all the same stuff. So we got different growing conditions where some things grow in some places, some don't in the other, you know, and hence why we started the Okanagan chapter of Local Supporting Locals, because within that chapter, within the Okanagan, we have all the resources, all the beef, all the vegetables, all the agriculture we need to sustain ourselves. We even got water rolling down from the hills. We can create our own hydro, and we need to step away from the big corporate system here. You know, so where you are, you need to analyze where you are and connect with your locals. Like, it's amazing the network that we created here, Dee, that we got farmers that know how to generate electricity off the grid. You know, you got aquaponics. I mean, there's so many ways that we can be, we like to call it self-sufficient, because this whole sustainability here.
The Agenda 21 people don't want you thinking that way, though.
I know. I'm not a good corporate citizen, though.
Neither am I. You think you're going to shoot us? The thing is, again, I got to point it out to people. What you are promoting is the exact reverse position of Agenda 21.
Well, you know, Dee, and you know, Dee, it was a pleasure to send you down a calendar, and as you saw, like a big part of what we did here with Locals Supporting Locals is we created this calendar, and it's titled Festivals and Events, so it's very non-evasive here. It doesn't sound radical. Real living with real food is the theme of the calendar. Inside, it tells you who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, and why it's important to shop locally. It's not a fad. They make it seem like it's some sort of fad. Look at me shopping locally as their pinkies go up. You know, it is the backbone and the heart of every community here. And it's the same thing with your local farmers here. And so That's the number one thing here. But then we roll into the solution. So all the photos are of our local ethical farmers, who they are, what they grow, how to find them all again. And it's got our festivals and our events on the days of the month, as well as our farmers markets. Very, very important, where to find them. And then we have money-saving coupons on the back, geared to get you back the $20 that we were initially selling them for. And the sponsorship for the calendar is extremely inexpensive. You can go to the website and see. But this is geared to fund your organization, because you don't want to have to fundraise if you need a pen and paper here. So we geared it this way. It was devised this way so that the only way you exist is if your local businesses and your local farmers are actually supporting you in what you do. If you can't get enough local businesses and farmers to support what you're doing, I highly, highly recommend that you move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really.
You know, because that means your town's too far.
That's putting it succinctly. You know, if
but we're
your
now
local people aren't of the same mind, get the heck out.
Exactly, you know, and so, but just to let you know how fantastic it here. And I got to admit, it's been tough. I've had to deal with 5 smear campaigns that I know about concerning myself when I started this. I've got 10 bruises on my bum from trying to help people and getting screwed here. You know, and it's, you know what? At the end of the day, at least take me out for a glass of wine, whisper in my ear, do something before you do that.
Yeah, really. I mean, I need bio oil for the scars on my back from knives.
Yeah. But that's that's the way it was. It was created, is for exactly that purpose. Nobody's meant to get rich in this, but the thing is in order to get the message out there and help educate the people, is we use the calendar and we use the website. Now we got the radio station here. You know, localsradio.com. Go to localsradio.com for all the archives. You know, Awake Radio is being simulcast around the world by a number of stations here. So we're actually being heard at a global level here. But our message at the end of the day is keep global local.
Yeah, kick out this global thing, because you know what? None of us are really global. None of us are. We occupy a very small portion of the surface of the earth. And each of those portions is unique, like snowflakes, just like we are. And each of them comes with its own set of challenges, and each one of them comes with its own climate and its own needs and its own natural environment. And you cannot collectivize and expect anything in nature to survive properly. What's going to happen is you're going to wind up with a desert.
Well, that's what they did. That's what they did to California.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean they're desertifying all kinds. They really are culling the population. And for those people who think that's not on the agenda, it is. You can Google a little speech made by former Secretary of State Robert McNamara, who then went on to become the head of the World Bank. And he said that, you know, they were disappointed in the level of lowering the population growth and depopulating, and they had to take more aggressive means. And he said, how, and this is a direct quote, how by natural means, famine and disease. And if you look at how the diseases are being promoted, well, GMOs are causing diseases, chemtrails are causing diseases, fluoride is causing diseases, aspartame is causing diseases.
Vaccinations.
Food, vaccinations, pharma products. You know, the leading cause of death in America is heart disease, followed by cancer, followed by medicine.
Well, I thought I read that apparently the number one cause of death in the U.S. used to be car accidents, and now it's actually pharmaceutical.
No, No.
No?
No.
Really?
If
Okay.
you add in the iatrogenic deaths in hospital, deaths from unnecessary surgeries, just medical screw ups,
Yeah,
and
that's what I mean.
include the drugs, then it's by far and away number one cause of death.
Okay, then that's what I
When
read
you
then.
but when you look only at properly prescribed pharmaceuticals, they kill 108,000 Americans every year. Properly prescribed and taken pharmaceutical products kill 108,000 Americans every year. Divide that by 365 people, and somebody's losing mommy or daddy every day.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, Dee, on that note there, we got about 15 minutes left here. We're just going to take another quick break here, just for 2 minutes, and we're going to be right back. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is a very, very great talk. Thank you so much for joining us, Dee.
Okay, we are going to be back though, right? Because we're not done.
Oh yeah. You know it, sister.
You're listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.
Thank you, and welcome back to Local Supporting Locals, the Heartbeat of the Okanagan here. We're here with Dee Nicohlson here, and we're talking on UN Agenda 21, sustainable development here.
Sustainable
Dee,
for who?
yeah, I know. It's amazing how much that word just turns me off, and that's why with Local Supporting Locals, we promote being self-sufficient.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, self-sufficient is a term that I wish people would be more familiar with, because if they recognized that self-sufficiency does not mean isolation, it just means you solve your problems.
Well,
right?
Dr. Shiv Chopra spoke about that. He says humans are the only species on this planet that doesn't feed themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we've grown so accustomed to going to our big corporate stores here, and I don't know if you've seen. It's actually been done twice here, but I saw this video. It was in Italian. You kind of like, I'm not Italian, so I couldn't understand, but you didn't need to. And it showed in the grocery store how this Italian man had his table, and he was giving samples of his pork sausages. And coincidentally, as you came up, he just ran out. And so he put up his finger 1 minute, and he reaches down, and he's got a little pig pen there, and he picks up this little piglet, and he's got this machine beside him. And people are looking, and, you know, oink, 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 oink. And he opens the top of it, and he throws a little piglet in there. And they're like, what the heck is going on here? You know? And then he hits the start button, and it starts to ground. No, you and I both know that doesn't work that way. But
of course not.
But you're watching as the pig is being as the machine is twirling here. You see the meat coming out, and they're freaking out. I mean, the women are slapping him. I'm just losing it. But it just goes to show you how disconnected we are with our food. You know,
I know.
so,
I have a friend who took her small daughter out to a farm to show her, you know, cows and calves and sheep and lambs and all that good stuff. And when the child figured out that what she saw in the field and was petting in the corral was the same thing on her plate, she swore off meat. She's 4 years old.
I know, especially kids, you know, and that's why I respect, like one of the farmers that's on our calendar here, the Sassen farm. You know, I mean, he's got 2 kids, and that's why he went back to farming once he started to see the world for what it really was, and he was living in Vancouver. Him and his family moved up to Oliver, and he started up his own organic farm here, and he had everything on there: pigs, goats, ducks, you name it, had it. Heirloom tomatoes, and it was him that actually. He asked me. He says, "Kev, do you know how many varieties of tomatoes there are?" And I'm like, "I don't know, about six." He goes, "Roughly about 900." And I'm like, "What?"
Uh-huh.
But in our grocery stores we see about three.
Yeah.
And one of his saddest days is when he had to slaughter the chickens. Because I mean they become pets to you. You go out there, you
Yeah.
feed them and everything else like that.
Yeah,
And
good
he
morning,
says,
girls.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it was a very sad day for him. Because it's almost like you're butchering a family member. And he says,
Uh-huh.
and he says, and he put it out to me as well. He says, until you can come out and butcher, what you eat, you shouldn't eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wholeheartedly agree, or at least view how it's done, so you know where your food is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, you need
and
to understand, and I have to point out to people too that there's a reason why people always say grace in front of their meal. There's a reason for it, and that reason is energetic. Now, this
yeah,
may be a little bit afield, but you have to understand that your thought energy and your intentions are measurable things. This has been proven by science over and over and over again. Even doctors allow that people who are prayed for get better soon,
yeah,
right? People who are not prayed for, they heal, but over a longer period of time.
yeah,
So, we know for a fact, it's absolutely proven that our thoughts can change the nature of things. And consequently, grace was developed so that all of the food that was on our table was blessed, was transmuted into its purest possible form for our consumption. That was the purpose of grace. And one of the most famous graces that people said, and I haven't been anywhere where they don't know this particular one, is, bless this food to our use and us to thy service. So in other words, make the food as pure as possible so that it's going to nourish us, so that everything that we can do honors nature, honors God, honors creation. That's the purpose of grace. Now, when you put that kind of vibration even into a GMO, it's going to do you less damage. So it may sound crazy, and you may think I'm crazier than a cut cat for suggesting it. Trust me, I'm not. If you look up the science, you'll see I'm telling the truth.
I know, but let's not put it out there that they just bless our food and GMOs are safe, though.
No, we can't do that because, people, you can only affirm what you really truly believe. So unless you really have an affinity for your own spirituality and your own heart and a real connection with things, your grace is going to be kind of half-butted, to say the least.
Well,
So,
okay,
it's not a cure-all. It's not by any stretch a cure-all, but it is something that we ought to be doing with all our food, GMO or not. And the reason I say that is because even our conventional food, because it is grown with pesticides and with fertilizers, it does not have the elements in it that were necessary to our diet. For example, sulfur. We used to use sulfur as a major antibiotic. And, of course, there's no money in it, so that went by the boards. But they also took sulfur out of the fertilizers that they used, and sulfur out of the vegetables and out of the soil. It was naturally occurring with the chemicals they're using. So we're no longer getting those ingredients. This is why we have to supplement. And this is all part of the plant. They're patenting pesticides, they're patenting chemicals of all varieties, they're patenting seeds, they're patenting livestock feed seeds too. So you may be eating organic everything, but if the cow you're eating was eating something that it shouldn't have been eating, then you're eating that cow, you're eating toxin.
Yeah.
And this is how conscious we have to be of our food right now. And like Kissinger said, you want to control a nation, control its food. Well, if we don't play our part in controlling our own food, can we trust greedy corporations to do it for us? I think not.
No, I know, and I got to wrap it up here, and it's always sad at this point because
yeah, I know, because we could go for 2 more hours.
Oh God, yeah, and so and that's why we're definitely going to have you back on, D, here. But at the same token here, for some reason, they've taken it upon themselves where, and I know a lot of respectable cattle farmers where the cows get to graze and walk and be free, and not have to stand in their feces like they do in these industrial farms, and they led a happy life before they went to slaughter, and when they did, it was quick and fast, and all you got to do is watch a few documentaries here. A lot of them are out there. And by all means, please educate yourself. If you do not look into what we're talking about right here and you want to make comments, and I see this happen all the time, I post something on something and all of a sudden, well, that's not you and this and that. And it's like, okay, I just posted that a minute ago and it's a 30-minute video and you're making comments. Please don't comment. Really and truly do your research into this. You have to understand, why is it that D and I, who are just concerned citizens here, are speaking up like we are? Why are we so concerned? Because we care, and at the end of my day, like I was saying earlier, I have no wife, I have no ex-wife, I have no kids, but why is it I seem to care more than those who do? Often I have talked about genetically modified organisms to a woman or a family here, and they look at me and say, you know what, we all got to die sometimes, and they're like, come on, kids, and so just remember, when you do that, when you choose to be ignorant, you are writing the future for your child right there. And you know what? To me, you shouldn't be a parent, but that's just my thoughts. I won't go further into that. So we're going to wrap it up here. Now, in wrapping it up, I just want to let the folks know here in the Okanagan, if you're in the Penticton area, we are continuing to work with the Wild Scallion, which is a locally owned restaurant here, and they specialize in raw dinners and organic. And we're doing what we local supported local started is dinner, movie, and a chat. And so you order dinner, and you're not obligated to order dinner. If you want, you can come there and have a glass of water if you want. But by all means, bring an appetite, because it's some of the best food you'll eat. But the way this thought came upon is, as a family, we always sit down to dinner and we discuss how our day went, and so that's what we're doing here. So we show the movie, eat dinner while you're watching the movie, and then we chat after. But more importantly, we chat about how we're going to take it all back. Okay, at a local level, take back your local government. It is the only way we stand a chance. All revolutions have started from the bottom up. It's all grassroots. Stop looking up for the second coming, because the second coming is you. So join us next week, and we will be following up with Agenda 21. We have a lot of shows that will tie in to show you how Agenda 21 ties into the smart meters and GMOs, and go to localsupportinglocals.ca, check out our event schedule, our videos, our news, and check out our archives for this show and some of our other shows at localsradio.com. As well, D, if you can let people know how to visit your blog, that would be great.
Well, I'm at dnicohlson.wordpress.com. That's my blog page. And if you want to be on my email list, just send me a note there, and I will put you on my list for the posts that I do send out. The blog site is not as active as I would like it to be right now, but the email newsletter certainly is.
Yes, I'm on that. I'm on that list, and yes, it is. So by all means,
Yeah,
by
I'm
all
on yours,
means.
and yes, that one is too.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and we'd like to thank Awake Radio for hosting our show, and we'd like to really give a big thank you to the Liberty Beacon for doing their part. We all have a role, people. Know your role, take your gifts and the knowledge that you have, and join a group, start a local supporting local chapter, and let's take it back locally. We can do it. Have a good night, guys.